Hi everyone, we'll continue our search for truth Bible studies with lesson 1 chart 4. Right, so in lesson 1 chart 4, we are looking at to what extent are the claims of the Bible, how do they stand up to claims or findings from various disciplines such as science or the medical fields or historical fields, right? So uh, again, looking at the extent to which the claims made by the Bible, to what extent can they hold up or are compatible with claims from different medical fields or different uh, disciplines out there, right? So let us begin. Now, in the area of science, perhaps I'd like to show us a few Bible verses that gives us an idea that the teachings of the Bible may not be as incompatible with science as what many people claim to be. Many times people have that notion that religion and science are incompatible because religion by definition tends on things that cannot be verified and often have claims that were based on a lot of inaccurate or superstitious basis. So let me just show us a few verses here. Now this is in the book of Job, right? And this verse says this: God stretches the northern sky over empty space and hangs the earth on nothing. Right? In another part of verse, Bible, same book, can you bind a cluster of Pleiades or loose the belt of Orion? Now, perhaps many people would feel that the interpretation of these verses may not be as conclusive or as definite. But if you look at what is possibly described in the first verse, it talks about how the earth hangs upon nothing, right? We know today, basically science tells us that basically the planet Earth is suspended in space, right? Unlike many myths, right, and different kinds of religious truths, whereby you used to talk about the earth. For example, in Greek mythology, right, the earth is carried upon the shoulders of a giant god called Atlas, right? So the Bible verse here seems to suggest that, in this case, the earth is suspended. Now, in the second verse, it seems to talk about how there is the belt of Orion. Today we know there are constellations that is known. No, I mean one of it is the belt of Orion as named. Now, what I'm trying to highlight here is this: that when you have Bible verses that talks about celestial bodies, right? These verses, right, may not necessarily be incompatible with science, right? Again, people could contest the exact interpretation of these verses, but from just some casual reading here, it might not be as incompatible as what people think it is. Okay. Now, in the area of the medical fields, early on in the Bible, there are a couple of claims about a certain couple of commandments that are made regarding consumption, right? And these verses, when we look at this in the light of today's medical understanding, we realize again they could be compatible. For example, this is what God told Noah, right, after the flood. Say, you must not eat any meat that has the life blood in it, right? In Leviticus, right, this was reinforced to Moses and the Israelites. They say the life of every creature is in his blood. That is why I've said to the people of Israel, you must never eat or drink blood, for the life of any creature is in its blood. Right, now today we know in the very literal way, in many ways, right, if certain organisms that has blood and they are drained of their blood, right, I mean basically there's no way life can carry on, right? The organism is dependent on the amount of blood that is available in its being, right? So when we look at again Bible verses, right, God commanding people not to eat blood because of the symbolic meaning, right? At the same time, it seems to be that it is compatible with the literal meaning, that there is literally life in the blood. Historically, the Bible has also been put up against historical claims to say to what extent is the Bible at least factually correct from the point of view of history. Now, we have two Bible verses here that I would like to share with us. The first one is this in 2nd Chronicles, right? It says this: in the first year of the king of Cyrus of Persia, the Lord fulfilled the prophecy he had given through Jeremiah. This is what King Cyrus of Persia said: the Lord, the God of heaven, has appointed me to build him a temple at Jerusalem, which is in Judah. Any of you who are his people may go there for this task, and may the Lord your God be with you. Right, in the New Testament, Luke chapter 2, right, at that time, the Roman Emperor Augustus decreed that a census should be taken throughout the Roman Empire. This was the first census taken when Quirinus was governor of Syria. All returned to their own ancestral towns to register for the census. And because Joseph was a descendant of King David, he had to go to Bethlehem in Judea, David's ancient home. He traveled there from the village of Nazareth in Galilee. Now, both of these make references to historical figures, right? And in some ways, history is able to validate, right, the point of which some of these events happen, right? And based on the description that's in the Bible, about, in this case, where Jesus went in terms of going back to Bethlehem to be registered, and when King Cyrus of Persia allowed the Israelites to return from exile, we realize that the Bible, in chronicling, in describing events that happened in the Bible, this can be proven to be historically accurate. Okay, so this can be verified quite easily. Now, in the area of archaeology, right, as we know, archaeology is something that happens every now and then in terms of new discoveries being made of ancient ruins, right? And many of these ancient ruins that are unearthed, right, have characteristics that are similar to those mentioned in the Bible. For example, where the Bible describes these cities that are destroyed by God, including Sodom and Gomorrah, right? There have been ancient ruins that have been discovered, and as they found that these ancient ruins have had, for example, large deposits of sulfur, right? And that in many ways seems to be compatible to what the Bible describes, how these cities were destroyed in terms of fire and brimstone. So these are just two examples, and there are many other such examples as mentioned in the Bible. Right. In the New Testament, the apostolic, the missionary journeys that Apostle Paul made, right, as described in the Bible, can be accurately traced. And when we trace them, we realize that there are historical records of such visits to these communities that Paul has made mention of, or as the Bible has made mention of. So archaeology basically is compatible with the Bible findings. Something that was very significant, which was discovered sometime in the 20th century, is the Dead Sea Scrolls. And these are called Dead Sea Scrolls because they are set of manuscripts that are discovered in and about the Dead Sea region, right? So they found the Dead Sea Scrolls containing most of the Old Testament, right? And these documents were dated to be back to prior to 1st century AD. So they have tested that these are documents that were not recently produced, but they dated as far back as almost 2,000 years ago, right? And these scrolls, right, upon further investigation, right, are very likely to be produced by Jewish scribes, right? The Masoretes were known to have a very thorough way of copying scriptures from older manuscripts to newer manuscripts, right? And this found that whatever that you and I have of the Bible today, right, the text, the teachings, the words, right, they are highly identical to what's found on the manuscripts. except for some spelling variations that changes quite naturally in some languages over time. So all this seems to suggest that the accuracy of transferring the word of God from generation to generation, the integrity of it is kept intact. Right. So as we close up this particular session, I think let's ask ourselves, what are some learning points? Right. One, that as a text, the Bible is consistent with findings from various disciplines, right? Or at the very least, they are not incompatible. Right. Some of these could refer to information that can only be verified through technological advancement many years later. For example, being able to verify that the planets in the solar system are suspended in space. These are things that people could know, science of the early years can never verify, but science of our current generations are able to verify this because of technological advancement. In other words, there could be many findings, many claims in the Bible that based on today's scientific technological advancements, we are unable to verify them for sure, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they cannot be verified. Right. And when we look at it factually, the facts written in many of these books were written by people in different eras who had no opportunity to collude or to agree on writing this information in a way that is consistent. Right. So this is what we have for this particular chart. What we hope to demonstrate and share briefly is that when we look at the Bible, right, the Bible as a text can stand up to scrutiny, even when you put it kind of like in comparison or to be compared against various disciplines. Right. So that's all we have. Right. And the last part being that when the Bible is factually accurate, it can give people confidence that if it is at least factually accurate, then what it is stated in there can possibly be true and can possibly give us confidence that it is the Word of God. Right. Okay, so that's all we have for us in this session. Thank you.